We're in the home stretch now as the group sets up camp, only for Abu to come stumbling into it while they're trying to sleep.
Please, you must help me.
Oh, that was great. Okay, all right, good. Ask me again.
Please, you must help me.
Good, good. All right, now I want you to do it in a little girl's voice while dancing a little jig.
She came to me, just like the wind said she would.
Okay, I thought you were being poetic before, but I'm starting to think that hat's too tight. Turgan caught up with her in his decree that she is to be stoned to death, which doesn't make sense because I thought it just took one woman saying no, right? Why, it's almost as if that fortune cookie wisdom is just a rousing, naive platitude rather than the answer to their plight, seeing as how all it's managed to do is get a girl killed in a rather terrible way. They make it clear that Turgan isn't doing this out of mad vengeance. The only way to maintain his authority is to follow the law, especially when it applies to his own. And if that means stoning your own daughter to death, well, no one said politics was easy. Give me a rock. Well, Carter is outraged by this, even more so when O'Neill says they can't do anything. It could likely start a war. Carter's even more outraged over that, quoting the Special Forces motto about freeing the oppressed. And that, of course, is why the U.S. military just randomly liberates villages around the world whenever they don't like what's happening. That is the way it works, isn't it? I'm not a fan of Star Trek's Prime Directive when it's used to justify a whole world being wiped out without lifting a finger to help. But that doesn't mean that I automatically get behind the Quantum Leap Directive where they have to right every single wrong they come across. That'd be a mistake. Going across the galaxy with our automatic weapons, fixing every injustice? That's arrogant and foolhardy. It would just be to pat ourselves on the back rather than trying to fix anything. We know it doesn't fix anything because it doesn't work here, does it? Plus, Sam should know from Turgan's own boasts that his modus operandi is to kill all the men and sell the women and children into slavery, which he can easily do with a couple dozen clans backing him up against just one. You are deciding to gamble with a lot of lives to try to save one girl for no other reason than your outrage and guilt. And what galls me is that she gets in O'Neill's face over something someone else would do while completely ignoring the fact that the guy who sold her into slavery is right frickin' here. She should be kicking him until he vomits up his own testicles. Daniel suggests that maybe one of the laws can be used to fight this, and if so, then it can't lead to war. So that's good. All we have to do is think of one.
Yes, if we fight with law, Turgan cannot make war. Father, please, think. Remember, there must be a law.
How can I think if you won't shut up, you horny little monkey? But there is a law. One chieftain can challenge another chieftain.
In the Song of Akantir, the spirit will strengthen the hand of the just.
But Turgan won't fight a crippled old man. He'll beat a helpless woman, but an old man who is literally asking for it, that would be dishonorable. So Carter claims to be the chief of their tribe. That lie Daniel told earlier along with being a druid or something. So now she must fight. To the death! It was stupid in Code of Honor, and it's stupid here. But not to worry, when you think of the modern military apparatus, you know that the two best qualifications for hand-to-hand combat are being an officer and working in a laboratory. I mean, there's Captain Atom. Okay, that's it. He's the only one.
Hey, no one said anything about...
Oh, and also it's with knives. The spirits prefer to see a little blood on the field. Well, I'm sure you won't be surprised to learn that Carter wins the fight and has Turgan at her mercy.
Carter, do not kill him.
I don't want to.
You have won. I am free to go with Abu.
What? It's a fight to the death. The only thing more idiotic than playing that worn-out card is to end with, nope, just kidding, it actually isn't. Geez, eaten alive had more of a payoff than this fight. Well, they are free to go. There will be no war, and Abu will be able to marry Naya. So I hope you kids have all learned a valuable lesson. If you want to get the girl of your dreams, don't be afraid to arrange a kidnapping. And thanks to this, the Big Cheese declares all their women free. All thanks to Carter. Yep, it's just like when Rosa Parks made civil rights history by challenging that bus driver to a knife fight. I'd like to congratulate them on this stupid victory in 3 ways. First, the women of these people did shit to gain their freedom. It was just handed to them by a man. If you're trying for a message of feminine equality, just wait for the men to deign you worthy. It sounds like it could use a bit of work. Second, this is another example of women of color don't understand they're oppressed until a white chick saves them. It's one of those lateral moves where you try to advance feminism through your unintended racism, which is amplified by, again, the only native female speaking role is played by a white girl. And third, this solves nothing, since the laws are there for the entire land. That's why the old fart pulled that rabbit out of his ass for the big climax, remember? He can't disregard the law without inviting war. And even if he didn't, those women will be in danger whenever anyone from another tribe spots them. So they'll have to go through the motions whenever they leave the village or when anyone else visits it. Well, that's awesome. You're free, so long as nobody's looking. Well, we can't end on that stupid note, so instead, we'll end on a completely different stupid note. On the way back, they discuss the anesthetic, which is a major breakthrough. But alas, they'll need to keep the real source a secret. Cue hilarious ending.
Damn. Guess I'm gonna have to cancel that Oprah interview. What is an Oprah?
Emancipation gets a stamp of the worst. Its jokes are stale, the characterization painful, the behavior mind-boggling, the conclusion trite, and most of it genuinely uncomfortable to sit through. Even watching O'Neill being tortured by Ball wasn't as off-putting as what was happening to Carter. To see her trapped in a situation where trying to get through the day without being raped or abused, that's not my idea of fun. Now before you say, oh, and seeing O'Neill tortured is? Of course not. Watching Jack go through that was painful, but it was necessary because it was in service to the larger drama. It would have severely diminished the episode without it, actually. Or take the Deep Space Nine episode, Paradise, where Sisko crawls back into the hotbox rather than admit that his spirit has been broken. The one bright spot in a dismal episode is that moment of defiance. Carter's knife fight victory is hardly the vindication needed to justify what we sat through. Not to mention contrived that someone who a month ago was working in the Pentagon lab can somehow win a knife fight against a warrior chief who built a career out of fighting with knives. It's hard to believe that Catherine Powers would go on to write other, much better episodes for the show. Last month's Pretense, for instance, that was hers. Here, she wrote the characters like complete yutzes. Just because Daniel has those glasses doesn't mean he's intellectually myopic, too. And O'Neill's attitude towards Carter's predicament and foolishness is not sending her back through the gate the moment he learned that it was open season on her. Betrayed an idiocy the man is not known for. And I can't emphasize enough how much it irks me that the episode glosses over Abu's crime. That is just jaw-droppingly absurd. We all do stupid things when we're in love, but there are limits to what is just water under the bridge stuff. He never even gives an apology. I'd think at least a Hallmark card, a teddy bear in chains perhaps. Sorry I made you a slave. How embarrassing. For a series as sophisticated as Stargate often aims to be, this episode is trite and simplistic. Finally, this episode came at a terrible time into the series, not just because it's a terrible episode, period, and it's the first off-planet mission for the series proper when you want to convince people that they should stick around. The characters hardly had any time to really be established before they just plunged into this. I mean, you got the gender obstacles out of the way in Children of the Gods. Now's the time to let Carter prove what a capable character she is as a scientist, as a field team member, before you go leaping about with the villain who sees her only as a woman thing. Otherwise, it looks like you have no idea what you're supposed to do with her other than bring up the fact that she has ovaries. Of course, they handled that with the same subtlety as the field team member thing, didn't they? Oh yes, of course the officer with a fucking PhD should be doing work you'd assign to a grunt, because that shows she's in the military. Can we find a way to have her dig a latrine or something? Thankfully, this early tendency to underestimate their audience dried up, and the series found its direction, distancing itself from its Star Trek by way of Three Stooges technique. But this is one time I agree with syndication. It's best to forget this episode was ever made.
And there's no tomorrow. Just take one day at a time, and remember, the bigger they are, etc.